Hey YouTube, welcome back. I wanted to take a minute and review the arrest affidavit with you all for Stephan Sterns, the man recently arrested for 2 counts of sexual battery and child pornography possession in the Madeline Soto case. For those of you who are new here, my name is Blue, and I'm a police officer with 10 years of experience. This video comes at the request of my subscribers, one in particular, who wanted me to give a review of the arrest affidavit with you all. In addition to that, we'll talk about a few updates in the case, as well as a leaked crime scene photo that was somehow accidentally posted to the social media account of the Osceola County Sheriff's Office. If you're not familiar with this, I'll link my recent video covering Madeline's case here. If you're a fan of all things crime related, consider subscribing and checking out my content. I post weekly and try my best to answer any questions or suggestions in the comments. With that said, let's get into the arrest affidavit. For those of you who saw my last video, you heard my assumption that Sterns' victim, based on the charges we read together, was most likely, in my belief, Madeline. Reviewing the affidavit, it appears the assumption was correct, the same assumption that many of you had as well. While the victim's name is redacted, as it always is in cases with juvenile victims, I was surprised to see that the date of birth was not, and it appears to be the same as Madeline's reported birthday. As we go forward, no, this is not a lengthy arrest affidavit, but it is graphic and will contain graphic details concerning a very sensitive topic. So, we start off with Sterns' driver's license photo being displayed, with his personal information as well. This is an arrest affidavit, and must be sworn to the courts as truthful and accurate to the best of the officer or detective's knowledge. As we scroll down, we see the arresting detective in this case is Detective Brian Moore of the Kissimmee Police Department. In the beginning here is just a descriptor and summarization of the facts of the case, in essence affirming that the defendant, Sterns, did in fact commit the above offenses on or about the listed dates and times against the victim. Below it is where we get into the facts of the case. As you can see, it starts with how they, as the investigating agency, became involved in this case, listing the initial call of Madeline being missing. It includes, and this is very important, the initial actions alleged by the reporting parties, that Madeline was dropped off at school by Sterns at this time, and that mom responded at this time and noticed that she was not there, also being informed by staff that Madeline had never showed up. That immediately makes the most important person to talk to Sterns, and it's refreshing to see that's exactly what happened. Now, as we discussed in the earlier video, Sterns was questioned by police, and detectives naturally asked if he would give them consent to search his phone, just to rule him out as a suspect. Most people, who are innocent and wanting to help with an investigation, would of course offer that to police. And Sterns did that as well, but obviously was not aware that police could access everything that's ever been done on that phone, despite his alleged accidental factory reset on the day of Madeline's disappearance, a coincidence that will for sure be used against him in court later on. Again guys, we're about to get to a very graphic part of this affidavit, and it is the most important as it relates to the criminal charges Sterns is now facing, so again, if you think this will be too much for you, please exit the video. Detective Moore pours through the phone's contents with other detectives, and would be immediately disgusted by what they see. Inside the contents of the phone, several pictures and videos would show a child being abused. Detective Moore described seeing an apparent young naked child, with her breast, vagina, and anus being depicted as the focal point of the picture. Okay, so I really like the wording the detective chose here about it being the focal point of the picture. That is very smart to include because it helps to eliminate any defense in court Sterns may try to make about the photo being accidental. As the affidavit continues, it only gets worse. Detective Moore describes several videos on the affidavit that depict this apparent child's mouth and vagina being penetrated by the defendant's penis. In addition, another video found of one of these incidents was time and date stamped to August of 2022. Which would have made this redacted victim, who we are all assuming is Madeline, 11 years old at the time of the assault. I know this is extremely uncomfortable to hear and read if you're following along, but this type of graphic terminology is common and required in our line of work, especially as it relates to court documents. Nothing can be uncertainly stated if you want to pursue a conviction and get justice for the victims. And if this is hard for us to read and hear, imagine how horrific it must have been for the victim. My heart truly goes out to victims of sexual assault, especially child victims. What you see next is Detective Moore describing the difference in the warrants based on the differences in the victim's age when this crime occurred, which is necessary considering the crime that happened when she was 11 makes Sterns eligible for capital punishment. Detective Moore, who in my opinion has written a very thorough arrest affidavit, piles on more damning evidence against Sterns. He describes seeing the room in the background of the pictures, something many would not be able to do considering what the picture's main focus was. He also compares the photographs from the room to photographs taken of the home and of the home's bedrooms when a search warrant was executed at Madeline's home. The comparison is made from the rooms in the pictures to the rooms seen and photographed when they served the warrant, and they must match up to the extent that gives even more probable cause that these crimes occurred here for it to be listed. Also, Detective Moore records that the victim, Sterns, and the victim's mother all reside in the same house. Aside from the name being redacted, it has all but been confirmed that the victim of these crimes is as we all suspect, Madeline. And the affidavit wraps up with a summarization of the facts, that Sterns is guilty of the aforementioned crime, sexual battery on a victim under 12, by a familial or custodial authority. So for the arrest affidavit, that's it guys. I hope I shed some light on the arrest form and the process behind why they include what they do on it, although to some I'm sure it may already be known. But there has been a very unsettling report that's just come to light in this case regarding Madeline's mother, and this comes via Channel 9. The offense incident report was released, which documents the primary responding officer's involvement in this case, including the statements Madeline's mother gave that day. In it, Jennifer Soto tells police that she had last seen Madeline the morning of her disappearance at 8 a.m. getting dressed for school. But in an interview with the news a few days later, she claimed that she last saw her the night before when she went to bed. The reason this is a major issue is that police believe that Madeline was allegedly dead long before the morning when Jennifer claims to have seen her getting ready for school. This is further evidenced by detectives who say that Sterns is seen dumping Madeline's backpack and laptop in a dumpster at 7:35 that same morning. So then, the question becomes, how could it be that she saw Madeline getting ready for school if there is evidence that she was likely already dead? Is this the smoking gun that's going to crack this case wide open? Maybe not, but investigators are being very careful about the information they've released, and no one is yet to have been charged in Madeline's murder. With this new information, I would not be shocked to hear that the mother may face charges in some way, shape, or form. Could it be an innocent mistake? Or did she have some involvement in the murder, or disposal of the body at the very least? Let me know in the comments what you guys think. I was really impressed on the last video. A lot of you had some really strong and interesting theories and predictions about this case. Now, I'm sure you heard about this very recent, incredibly upsetting post made by the Osceola County Sheriff's Office. If you haven't, let me summarize it quickly. A photo was uploaded to their social media page of the crime scene. At least that's what was initially reported. News articles today are claiming that the picture that was uploaded was of Madeline's body when it was discovered in the woods, at what is commonly referred to as a dump site. This is unacceptable for several reasons. I'm going to make some assumptions here based on my own experiences, not because I have any actual knowledge of how this went down. It's no secret that in today's society, nothing is private anymore. In police work, some horrific crime scenes do get photographed by officers, although this is much rarer than perhaps it is thought to be. But I would assume that's exactly what happened today. Inferring that the social media post, which was supposed to be about Sheriff Marcos Lopez attending a senior community event, was posted from a cell phone, then why didn't the person posting it make sure to not include a picture like that, knowing full well they had it on their camera roll? When the department says they don't believe it will negatively impact the investigation, which I do agree with, it is outrageously disrespectful to Madeline and to her family. I know it's shocking to think this could happen, but it's important to remember the same people who you grow up around and deal with in daily life in various circumstances, some of these same people become cops. We're not a special breed of infallible citizens, but are just as flawed as anyone else. And sometimes we make the same stupid mistakes and decisions. In my own opinion, I do think the fact that fewer and fewer people want to become police today is going to have long-term effects of less qualified people who aren't really fit for the job, slipping through the cracks and getting hired anyway. But that's a topic for another day. At the end of the day, one of the things I want you guys to take from this case is that there are good men and women in law enforcement who every single day do the best job they can to serve their communities. Despite all the bad you may hear about, and trust me, there'll be videos coming on those topics, the majority do good work like this every day. And these cases happen so much more frequently than most people even know. I think the investigators on this case should be applauded, and I can promise you guys they have likely been working around the clock since Madeline first went missing. They give up a lot of their own life to be a detective, and it is an incredibly demanding job. But all in all, this arrest affidavit details a horrific, long-term abuse that Madeline suffered at the hands of Sterns, a man who was in a position of trust in her life. This is heartbreaking, and it confirms the fears that we all had, and that I saw many of you commenting about in my first video. I do at least hope that today's topic was informational, as awful as it is. I'd like to hear your guys' comments on the matter and what you think is going to happen next in the case. I just ask that you keep it respectful, and if you have any questions for me, ask away and I'll do my best to answer them all. And as always guys, until next time, stay safe and stay tuned.